A broken man walks into a church. His career is gone, his marriage is over, his whole life has crumbled to dust. He's there to pray, maybe to give up entirely, and that's the exact moment a living alien creature, oozing in the shadows, decides he's the one. That man is Eddie Brock, and nobody, ever paid for the Venom symbiote as heavily as he did. The symbiote gave him power, sure, insane power, but it also took the rage already inside him and cranked it up to 100. Eddie wasn't just a man anymore, he was a walking revenge machine. And here's the thing I want you to understand from the start. Every single person who ever touched this symbiote ended up paying for it, no exceptions. Peter Parker almost lost his humanity. Harry Osborne maybe paid the heaviest price of all. Even a low-life criminal named Lee Price got dragged into it. There's an old line that fits this perfectly. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And honestly, there's no better example of that than the Venom symbiote, because this thing offers you a deal that looks like a dream, super strength, organic webs, near immortality. But it's a trap. It's always a trap. So today we're breaking down every Venom host, where they came from, what the symbiote gave them, and way more importantly, what it took from them. And we're going to spend most of our time on Eddie, because his story is the blueprint for all of it. Real quick though, if you're into deep Spider-Man stuff like this, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel grow. And drop a comment. If you got this kind of power, knowing the cost, would you still take it? I actually want to know. Alright, let's get into it. First, you gotta understand what the symbiote even is. The Venom symbiote isn't a costume. It's a living, thinking, feeling alien. When it bonds to someone, it gives them incredible power, but in return, it wants something. It feeds on your anger, your darkness, and slowly, quietly, it starts taking over. So it looks like a gift, but it's really a bargain. And everyone who makes that bargain pays up eventually. The first person to learn this the hard way was Peter Parker himself. Way back in the famous 1984 Secret Wars story, Peter found the black suit and wore it for a while. At first it was amazing, stronger, faster, cooler. But then he noticed the suit was moving on its own at night, carrying him around the city while he slept. He was getting angrier, more aggressive, less like himself. And it wasn't just his mind, it was exhausting his body too, draining him while he thought he was resting. He finally broke free using the sound of a church bell, and that was the first big lesson. The symbiote gives you power, but it slowly erases who you are. Peter was lucky, he got out in time. The others, not so much. In the comics, Eddie was a journalist, and his career got destroyed in a way that, partly involved Spider-Man. He wrote a big story naming the wrong guy as a serial killer, and then Spider-Man caught the real one, making Eddie look like a fraud. He lost his job, his wife left him, his whole world fell apart, and at his absolute rock bottom, broken and desperate, he walked into a church. And that's exactly where the symbiote, freshly rejected by Peter, was waiting. They had one thing in common, they both hated Spider-Man. That shared hatred fused them together, and Venom was born. Now here's where I want to slow down, because Eddie's a fascinating character if you actually look at him. And look, I'm no psychiatrist, I'm just a guy who reads way too many comics, but you don't need a degree to see the pattern here. Eddie has what you'd basically call a victim complex. His whole life, going back to his dad blaming him for his mom's death, Eddie learned to never see himself as the problem. So when his career imploded because of his own mistake, his mind did this twisted little trick. Instead of accepting, I messed up, he reframed it as, Spider-Man did this to me. It's textbook blame shifting. He takes his own failures and pins them on someone else, because facing the truth would just hurt too much. And the symbiote loved that. It took that refusal to take responsibility, and it fed on it like fuel. That's the scary part. The symbiote didn't create Eddie's darkness, it just found it and made it bigger. There's a quote I always think about with characters like this. Carl Jung supposedly said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's Eddie in a nutshell. He never looked inward, never faced his own part in his downfall, so he spent years blaming Spider-Man and calling it justice. The symbiote just gave that delusion a body. And here's the part that really gets me. In the comics, Eddie's body was failing him too. He was diagnosed with cancer. So think about his situation for a second. His career is gone, his wife is gone, his health is failing, and his mind is trapped in this loop of blaming everyone but himself. He was a man with nothing left to lose, drowning in resentment. That's the perfect storm the symbiote looks for. It doesn't bond with happy, balanced people. It hunts for the broken ones, the ones whose pain has nowhere left to go. And Eddie was about as broken as they come. The symbiote promised to take all that pain and point it outward, at a target. For a guy who'd spent his whole life refusing to look in the mirror, that was the most tempting offer imaginable. But the power didn't fix any of it. It just buried the real wounds deeper, under layers of rage and muscle and teeth. And honestly, that's what makes Eddie such a tragic figure to me. Underneath all the monster stuff, he's just a deeply hurt man who never learned how to take responsibility for his own life. The symbiote didn't save him from his pain. it just gave him a louder way to scream. Let's jump to how different shows. If you grew up in the 90s, you probably met Eddie in the 1994 cartoon, and honestly, that show handled him really well for a kid's show. Same setup, Eddie's a reporter whose career gets wrecked, he blames Spider-Man, and the symbiote finds him at his lowest. What I loved is how the show let you watch the symbiote slowly eat away at him. The more power he got, the less reason he had left. They couldn't show anything too dark, it was a kid's show, but you could still feel Eddie losing himself piece by piece. He gained all this strength, and lost his peace of mind in exchange. Quick pause, be honest with me here, if you had a power like this, what's the first thing you'd actually do with it? Drop it in the comments, I read every single one, and while you're at it, hit that like button, it really does help this little channel out. Then there's the one most people know, Topher Grace's Eddie in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. Now this movie's divisive, I get it, but there's one detail I love. Right before Eddie bonds with the symbiote, he's literally in a church praying for Peter to die, praying for it, and that's the exact moment the symbiote drops onto him. Think about that. It found him at the precise second his hatred was at its peak, and in the end, the power consumed him so completely that he chose to die with the symbiote rather than let it go. That's how deep the hooks were. Alright, we're past the halfway point, and this is where it gets really interesting, because now we're getting to the hosts most people don't fully understand. Matt Gargan. After Eddie, the symbiote bonded with Gargan, the villain known as Scorpion, and there's this fascinating little detail in the comics. When Gargan became Venom, Spider-Man actually beat him more easily than he ever beat Eddie's Venom. Why? Because Gargan didn't hate Spider-Man as much as Eddie did, and since the symbiote feeds on that hatred, it couldn't draw as much power from him. Just sit with that for a second. The symbiote is literally only as strong as the darkness inside its host. Gargan got the power, but in the end, he got torn away from the symbiote and left with nothing. Then you've got Flash Thompson, and his story flips things a little. Flash was a war veteran who'd lost his legs. The military gave him the symbiote, and he became Agent Venom. The symbiote even gave him his legs back, but there was one rule. He could only stay bonded for 48 hours at a time, or it would take him over completely. So even Flash, a guy genuinely trying to use this thing for good, lived under constant threat of being consumed. The symbiote gave him the ability to walk again, but it demanded a never-ending war with himself in return. Honestly, that might be the most tragic deal of all. Imagine being given back the thing you wanted most, but having to fight it every single second to keep it. Now here's a host almost nobody, Lee Price. And this guy is different, because the symbiote didn't make him evil, he was already evil. In the comics, Lee Price was a petty criminal, and when the symbiote bonded to him, the symbiote actually wanted to do good, but Price seized control and dragged it back into pure villainy. It's the one time the script gets flipped. Usually the symbiote corrupts the host, but here the host corrupted the symbiote, and he still paid the price. He got forcibly ripped away from it, and his life spiraled into disaster. There's a reason wise people warn about this. Like the old saying goes, it is not power that corrupts, but fear. Price was so afraid of being powerless again that he twisted the one good thing that ever happened to him into a weapon, and it destroyed him. And now, the one that genuinely breaks my heart, Harry Osborne. This is from the PlayStation game Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and the way they handled it is just brilliant. Harry was dying from a terminal illness, and the symbiote was the only thing keeping him alive. So at first, the symbiote was literally his savior, his miracle cure. But then the symbiote left him and bonded with Peter, and we watched it twist Peter into someone angrier, crueler, someone willing to hurt the people he loved. When Peter finally tore it off, Harry took it back, but this time it didn't save him, it consumed him completely and turned him into Venom. And here's the gut punch. All Harry ever wanted was to heal the world. He started a whole foundation in his late mother's memory, but the symbiote took that pure, good intention and turned it into a citywide nightmare. Imagine that. The one thing keeping you alive becomes the thing that erases you. That's the cruelest deal the symbiote ever offered. So let me bring it all home. Look at the wreckage. Peter nearly lost his humanity. Eddie lost his career, his sanity, his peace. Gargan got left with nothing. Flash got a lifelong war inside his own body. Lee Price spiraled into ruin. And Harry, sweet, well-meaning Harry, lost everything. You see the pattern, right? The symbiote gave every single one of them a taste of heaven and then handed them a personal hell. And that's the real truth about Venom that took me forever to understand. It's not really a monster, it's a mirror. It finds the darkest thing already inside you, and it makes it bigger. Eddie's blame, Gargan's cruelty, Harry's desperation. The symbiote didn't invent any of it, it just amplified it. Maybe the scariest thing was never the symbiote at all. Maybe it was what it revealed about the person wearing it. So let me ask you one more time, now that you've seen the cost. If that power showed up at your lowest moment, would you take it? Be honest in the comments. And which host story hit you the hardest? Let me know. Hit subscribe so we can keep this spider family growing, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe out there, and be careful what you let inside.